So probably the biggest risk I've taken setup wise. I don't know. That's a tough question. It's a good question. I think the biggest thing right now with these cars is how aggressive you are in some of the settings, whether that's some of the camber or pushing the tire things that could possibly blow out a tire, but you make grip right up until the point when you blow. So I think probably some tire settings would be the biggest risks I've taken that have paid off where, you get a lot of grip out of that tire and you have a really good race and you feel like you're right on the verge of Goodyear telling you you're going to fail.
That's really cool, especially with, the emphasis that's been placed on tires the last few months of the season. Now, kind of shifting to the first time that you met Michael McDowell, what were your first impressions of him?
So it's interesting. I didn't really have like a true first impression, like, me and you just meeting right now having a conversation. And I say that because in the sport, you're kind of always sort of close to people and you're kind of paying attention to everybody. But I didn't really like truly meet Michael until we sat down for that first interview, really. But we were on a technical alliance team. So I was in debriefs with Michael, listening to Michael or have listening to him ask questions or talk about his race car. And so I had some, I don't know if preconceived notions is the right way to say it, but it's kind of like that, right? Like if you kind of been around somebody, but you haven't really met them. So I kind of knew him some that way. And then when we met, I got to see a little bit of a different side of him because it was more, getting to know each other like, hey, we might have this relationship if I pick you as my crew chief. So then it was a different level of getting to know him. And I saw a lot more of the intensity and drive he has than maybe I would have noticed before just from listening to him talk about his race car.
You mentioned right there the kind of the drive and the intensity, and each driver kind of has their own unique style. And so, what part of Michael's approach in particular separates him from some of the other drivers that you've worked with?
I think it's a lot of that, like his level of involvement with the team and his own prep work that he puts in. He just kind of sets the bar pretty high in terms of how much he wants to be involved, how hard he's going to work and show that work and be around and do all the extra things that you don't really necessarily always have or need out of the driver. Not every driver's hanging around the shop all the time or just sitting in your office going through some meetings with you and things like that. But Michael likes to be involved in everything. That's probably the thing that stands him out the most.
And you touched on it right there. Throughout the season, you're spending countless hours at the shop, and at the track with Michael. So, how has working with him kind of impacted your life, maybe in ways that you didn't necessarily expect?
I think when you spend the amount of time you're talking about with anybody, you kind of all rub off on each other a little bit, right? Maybe some of my tendencies Michael picks up on or adapts to, and I would say I'm similar with him. So whether that's music he listens to I would have never known about before. You're talking about making this piece on faith and stuff, right? And we would joke about listening to rap music and stuff. And he introduced me to NF, which I'd never heard of before, but which is kind of Christian rap, right? And so there's little things like that that always happen when you spend this much time together. Our families have gotten to know each other. He has a baby that's pretty similar age to my daughter. And so then my wife and his wife will hang out or we'll all get together. He has a lot more kids than me, obviously, but um, there's just all those things that you just kind of end up, hopefully, and in our case, it works, building a friendship. It's not just a working relationship. And then so you kind of, it all just meshes together and it just becomes part of your life.
You touched on it right there. Family is one of the things that's really important to Michael's life. And so, from your perspective, what's one thing that makes the McDowell family so special?
I think what me and my wife like about the McDowells is they're just, real, honest, normal people, right? Like you sometimes think maybe race car driver has this persona or they're this larger than life, like celebrity type person. And some of them are, but the McDowells are just very down to earth people. They're faith based. They're just shoot you straight, treat you good. I mean, they're really good human beings, right? Outside of just worried about race cars and stuff like that. And I think that's what we've liked the most after getting to know them for a while.
And Michael's faith, his passion for adoption as well, they play a major role in his life. And so, I'm curious how these values kind of shape the way he approaches his career, but also kind of leadership within the Spire organization.
I'd say, the faith kind of is the root of all that, right? Whether that led to them feeling called to adopt or that trickles into how Michael carries himself on a daily basis or how he wants to be a leader on the team and that servant leadership style I talked about of him always being around and always being willing to help and go the extra mile and put the work in himself. So I think, they are very very strong in their faith and very good examples of being disciples. And that's something I admire about them, and I think I would like to emulate even better watching how they live their lives. And I think it just becomes, because it's such a cornerstone of who Michael is. It kind of is exuded through everything he does.
I mean, and I feel like you personally have kind of seen that impact of family and racing with your father, being involved in the sport. Now you're building your own career, and you touched on it a little bit earlier. You've got a daughter similar age to Michael's, and I'm just, kind of curious now. Has Michael shared any parenting advice potentially that just really stuck out to you?
Well, at 1.5, there's not a whole lot of other than just keeping toddlers alive and not crashing into stuff that is the down and dirty on the parenting just yet. But like I said, with our families becoming friends and our wives spending time together and our kids spending time together, I think it probably has. Maybe not something I can specifically be like, oh yeah, this one thing he told me is an anecdote that's going to stick with me forever. But when you have 5 kids like the McDowells doing, and you see they've raised very good kids, very respectful kids, you do want that to rub off. And I've told him at times, I'm like, hey, me and my wife Hannah, I said we probably need to go to dinner with you guys some and talk about what you've done right, because we want to emulate that some. But so far we've been too busy with race cars to maybe even have that conversation.
I mean, you said it right there, busy with the race cars. You guys both made the transition to Spire Motorsports this year. And Michael said it a lot that this was a move that he wanted not only for his career security, but to have the opportunity to win races, to be, to that next level in his career. I'm just curious now in the first few months of the season, you guys have shown speed. What are the thoughts so far?
I think we knew there was going to be growing pains coming over here and a lot of new for us. It was nice that, myself and Michael got to stay together and a couple of guys from the team came over. So there's a little less new than if it was a complete reboot. But I think we've been very pleased that even though there's been kinks to work out and there's things that we know we need to be doing better and we can still get better at, that we've had decent speed and we've been able to get good results, right? I mean, I think we were 12th last week, and I was talking to the shop this morning, and I was like, I don't really want to be optimistic about 12th. I want our goal to be higher than that. But it was an optimistic 12th. It was one of our best overall Martinsville weekends, just a solid execution weekend, decent speed, in contention for top tens. And right now, I think that's the thing. If we can make those our days that we just feel we're average and we want more, that's a good thing. You want your average to bad days to be like they have been for us this year, where they kind of fall in the teens. And then hopefully your really good days where you feel like you nailed it and everything goes right, then you're up there competing for wins, top fives, top tens. So I think we know we still have a long way to go, but very optimistic at what we've been able to do so far, with knowing that we still have a lot we can grow and get better at.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Gosh, I don't know. Probably not.
All right, well, that wraps up my questions. Again, this was Travis Peterson, crew chief for Michael McDowell and Spire Motorsports. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. See you later.